Chester Ney, welcome to the Christian Bitcoin podcast. Super excited to have you on. I met you a couple years ago at Thank God for Bitcoin in Nashville. And then at the most recent Thank God for Bitcoin last year in Las Vegas, you were sitting over to the side with your computer, furiously coding on something, caught my eye. So I went over there and we chatted, and I happened to nab serial number 1 of this guy. This is your handmade device, Blocktron.
Yeah, I got one too here. Yes, I got one as well.
So it's been super fun. I've reprogrammed it a few times, depending on the context, putting the block height and the price at different locations. We went to our General Assembly and had a booth last year in Chattanooga, and I switched the price with the block height because the price was just sort of kind of too in your face for people. So I made it small. So it's cool. It's open source. You hand make these things.
Yeah. So I need another side project, like a hole in the head. Basically, PubKey in New York City has a bar, Bitcoin bar, and they're very like 8-bit video game themed bar, and they have lots of tchotchkes everywhere. It's a very busy bar, but Bitcoiners love it because there's 80s, 90s themed stuff everywhere, and so they tweeted out they had their price sign, which was previously 5 digits, had failed. It was using a microcontroller, was not well designed, and it had failed. And they said, "Hey, any shadowy coders can help me. I'm not a shadowy coder, but more of a white hat guy. But can anybody help to make something?" And I looked at this and I was like, "Yeah, I could probably do this, but I'm swamped, And it's so funny. The Holy Spirit, I think, at times will prompt us to say yes to things that are outside our comfort zone. And so this seems like a weird thing to get prompted to say yes to, but I did say yes. And I just challenged myself to do the entire project using AI. Simply because I just didn't have time to learn a Python microcontroller Python language to do the project. I've largely been in the IT infrastructure, service delivery side, haven't programmed for a long time, and I just didn't really want to jump in and learn a new language to make a project for someone for free, essentially. So, but what I did is I jumped into ChatGPT and I said, "Look, here's what I want to do. Help me to think about this problem. Like what microcontroller? I know there are Raspberry Pis. I knew there were a bunch of things out there. What should I use?" And the great thing about that is when you're a fairly entrepreneurial person, like I am, it helps you to quickly answer questions and think about what you should or shouldn't do, or it's a much more responsive conversational type of experience. And so I was able to ferret out pretty quickly what kind of microcontroller would be good to use, what was available in the open source community. I wanted to make it open source. And then I built a prototype in 2 days and had a working physical unit in about 2 weeks that I hand delivered to PubKey in New York. They really loved it. It immediately had all sorts of problems with public sources of data going down, and then it would reboot, and it was kind of very glitchy. And now I understood immediately why the previous creator of this LED sign in the bar wasn't particularly successful, because there's so much nuance, there's so much devil's in the details, and it became very obvious quickly that I needed to connect to many data sources and kind of have some error handling and do some more serious programming. And but I found myself still pretty interested in doing this. And then people started asking to buy them. Fast forward a couple months, and people wanted to buy them, and I wanted to have a more polished looking product. So I reached out to Rick at CryptoCloaks in Colorado. He does a lot of 3D printing for the industry, and he had a really great proposal to do a prototype at a very low cost, and then over time, as I bought more units, I'd eventually get the the 3D file for myself, and I could make them myself if I wanted to. But he was very responsive, and we had some prototypes, and I built 21 for the conference there in Vegas that you had mentioned this past summer. And as you know, they immediately sold within a day. They were they were all gone. People loved them. And we set up a Telegram or a Signal group. We got some feedback from everybody. I was gracious. You were very gracious to buy the first one, sight unseen, without even knowing what it was. That was really kind of you to affirm me in that way. But yeah, it's kind of taken off. I printed another 50 or so units for PubKey, and those are almost sold out. And working with a couple other folks to do branded units. And yeah, it's just a fun project. It has some information there about the Bitcoin. It's very similar to other products in the industry, but I think the thing that's really interesting about it is it's very builder friendly. And so if you have kids that are into STEM, or you want to give a shot at building one yourself, I will have kits eventually where you'll be able to do that. And the information that it displays is very flexible. I did wind up programming a middleware that we can use and connect to, and that I can control the data and have a better user experience, updates and that sort of thing. So it's been an interesting project. It's not paying too many bills yet, so I still have very much have a day job and other higher priority commitments. But it's been a super fun project so far, and it's gotten some legs.
So are you still primarily vibe coding it, or have you switched over to coding by hand?
No, I mean it's about the most perfect thing to vibe code, if I'm being perfectly honest. And since I started even 1 year ago, the Claude Code product has just blown up, and it would be a waste of my time to like code it myself, if I'm being frank. We we built some things by scratch, and they were put to shame through AI coding tools in a matter of minutes, with better designs. And so if I'm being perfectly honest, it would be probably a worse product if I actually coded it myself. Now I'm
okay. So you're using Claude still
yeah,
to code it. We just
Claude.
got over there updates.
Yeah.
How come it took several months then? Can't Claude just pump it out
Yeah.
right away? Or
It can, but there's some very specific nuance that was not understood by the AI tools about a locking mechanism, because I want people to be able to plug it in via USB and bring up Mu, which is a Python code editor, connect to it, see the input and output, be able to make changes to it. But in order for you to be able to do that, you can't actually read and write the files because they're locked. They're read-only. And so in order to deliver over-the-air update functionality, you have to put the device into an update state and then overwrite the files, and have about 3 or 4 reboots involved. It's kind of it's a very nuanced thing that the AI was incapable of figuring out because it just didn't understand the nuance. And so eventually we figured out the thing that we needed. I won't go into the details; it's super boring. But there's a bit that you can turn on and off that retains its information after reboots, and you can use that bit for update states. And so I found an open source project that was using a similar update functionality, was able to use some of that logic, and then introduce my own, and then that was the thing that was missing. But I can't work on this thing for more than maybe 5 or 10 hours a month, in my current thing. So I tend
there's
to do.
still the point is there's still bits and pieces that the AI can't quite do
Oh, sure,
at
sure.
this point.
Well, it's
Okay.
yeah. but it's not that it can't do it. It's just it can't do it because it doesn't understand the nuance.
What's
There's
the difference between can't doing it and can't doing it because it can't understand it?
Well, if as soon as you explain the nuance, then it could do it. So
Okay, but you had to figure out
I
the
had to figure
nuance.
out the nuance, right? It didn't have the second and third order like problem solving to be able to understand what would be a good mechanism to deliver this functionality. So the human component was still very much in the loop in terms of thinking about how to solve the problem. But as soon as that was solved, then it was boom to the races. After that it took 2 hours and it was done. So it
Okay,
was.
I think this is a pretty good jumping off point then for kind of the bulk of this conversation. This is going to be a little bit of a not a normal topic for this podcast. It's going to be AI heavy. We are going to get back to Bitcoin stuff towards the end, but I want to kind of dig in on the AI piece. You went on the What Bitcoin Did podcast a couple years ago. You made a bunch of statements and predictions, mostly pretty optimistic about the future of AI and using it for vibe coding and other types of projects, replacing whole teams. You are, or I'm assuming you're still the IT director at the environmental engineering firm.
Yeah, I'm still there managing our technology practice around our infrastructure and our service delivery. But yeah, I mean it's that's my day job. It's been very interesting to see developments in the products and services and applications we've used. Nearly every application that's cloud-based has added some degree of AI functionality in the last 2 years. I wouldn't say all of them have value, but many of them uh, are using it as a reason to charge you more for software.
Like
It's
you're selling an AI enhancement to your customers, or you're using AI to make the product.
No, so many of our applications that we use to run our business are cloud-based, as you can imagine. And many of those applications are adding AI functionality that they think their customers want us, right? And I've been on the infrastructure side of technology management for a long time, nearly 20 some years. And so it's many people were there when you had your own servers and you kind of managed your own stuff at your own location. And this is now becoming an issue with some of these AI models where you want to run them locally, you want to have control over them. And this pendulum swings between putting our stuff in someone else's control in the cloud or keeping it. And largely over the past 10 years, the pendulum has been swinging to get your stuff in the cloud, right? So that it's easier to manage or easier to scale, more secure, a smaller attack surface. And so we've been doing that, and that's worked out phenomenally well for us. It's allowed us to scale our organization very aggressively, and it's improved our security posture as well, because these companies all have dedicated teams of AI professionals and security professionals improving their products. But it's definitely been interesting since the What Bitcoin Did episode that we did. Some of the predictions we had made were, agentic AI tools. That happened fairly quickly after that episode. Within probably 6 to 12 months after the episode, a lot of these companies have been deploying AI models that are basically a collection of smaller models that are optimized to answer certain types of questions or solve certain types of problems. And the programming use case is absolutely taken off. We talked about unicorn kind of founders where, and I wouldn't call myself a unicorn founder, but I'm a single person building a product and was able to do so in marketing and do the business side and all of the scaling and coding and middleware pieces essentially by myself for a really low cost, right? That's really going to be very transformational for any entrepreneurs who are building now, because there are AI coding platforms that you literally just are sharing an idea and you have a prototype by the afternoon. It's really quite phenomenal how quickly you're able to iterate and ideate, and that's going to be very disruptive to current incumbents who've built these very large monolithic companies, delivering products and services or software, to be disrupted and have hopefully costs come down, because we haven't seen that just yet. Costs keep going up for all these products, and I think businesses are really on the fence as to whether or not they should buy them, whether or not they should use them, whether they're ready, whether they're safe. And so my day job is primarily navigating those challenges and for our organization, and then proposing solutions.
So when you sorry, when you talk about agentic, are you saying 2 years ago when you recorded what Bitcoin did, it was more just an oracle, and now these things can actually go out and do things?
Yeah. So at the time, that was probably 2 years ago at this point, right? And so at the time, ChatGPT 3 I think was coming out, right? And so it was.
You guys were talking about 3.5, and
yeah,
then
3.5
saying, "Oh, 4 is going to be better."
So when 4 was released, they started to introduce connective capabilities where they can access the internet, it can go outside the model, it can start to do research. Now you can just pose a very broad question on the pro models, and then walk away for 25 minutes, come back, and literally the whole thing has been stepped through and solved. That used to require a lot more hand holding in the prompt engineering. It would hallucinate, it would get off the rails very quickly. It was very difficult to kind of navigate the AI into a final state that was what you needed. And the prompt engineering required to do that was a lot more nuanced. Now you can just ask the AI to help you generate the prompt to get the best outcome, right? And you can even pit AI models against each other to improve the output, and so that's very different than when it was before. You could use it for programming, developing scripts, and things like that a couple years ago, but it's nothing like today, where it's connected to your GitHub repository. It's fully aware of all of your entire code base. It's up to speed on best practices. It knows how your organization wants to code things. It's works with teams. It's putting things into pipelines for test dev. It's just come such a huge way in the past 2 years. And we thought that. I mean, one of the things that I predicted is that we're coming very close to most software development being completely automated. I don't think
you guys definitely do not learn how to code. So do you stand by that career advice?
Well, I mean, coding is changing, I think. I don't think most universities are preparing students for how it's changing. You're having to learn a complete complete different set of skills on how to interact with these AI models and tools that's more, right? It's, so if you're coming up and you're in a program like Stanford or MIT, Stanford actually just made their ML program free, and you can just go watch it.
Yeah, I've been watching it.
Yeah, me too. Right. So it's like, it's interesting because information is trending to free, and that always has been the case as soon as the internet came around. But with these, with chatbots and agentic AI, and it's like anything you would like to learn, and any value you would like to provide to any community or any project, you can get up to speed very quickly if you're able to kind of empty your mind of your preconceived notions about what is a programmer or what is a software developer, right? It's changing very rapidly. What I will say is most young people are not flexible enough in their what they're thinking they want to do, and it's changing so rapidly that by the time people now who are just coming out of school now with degrees in software engineering, if they haven't spent the last 3 or 4 years also learning these new skills, they're not going to be competitive in the marketplace, because all the existing programmers, if they want to survive, are learning, are using the tools, are trying to figure them out. And it's just going to be like that for every profession. It's not just a programming thing.
I mean, when I was in school for programming, it was all about algorithms and data structures and design patterns and architecture and stuff like that. Are you saying it's, yes, learn that plus learn the AI stuff? Or it's like, nah, all that stuff's like,
no, I mean,
assembler when I was in school. You don't need to know assembler.
The problem is, if you don't know all of those things, data structures, cybersecurity, coding best practices, all these things to like, obfuscation and reusability and like all these very general programming things, and you just sit down and you're like, let's go, you may wind up building something that is really poorly designed. It might still work, that might be okay, but I think there's still room for the engineering side, for like effective design. But that gap's getting that gap's closing very quickly, right?
Like 5 more years?
I don't think so. I don't think so, man.
I mean, that's the thing, is like, you're going to go to get a 4-year degree, and by the time you graduate. So, I mean, okay, we're talking about this transition period, but I'm just saying, for somebody that's thinking about graduating high school, going to college right now, getting a 4-year degree in CS or something, it's kind of like, nah.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, people still will need to use computers. There still will be data challenges. There still will be integration challenges with tools. There still will be technical nuance to sort out, but it will be a lot, I would say it will be a lot easier, or it will be a lot more straightforward with some of the tools that are available even now.
Or not even necessarily about some algorithm or data structure, but like with the Blocktron, you have to have this insight that the device has to be in a different state and the files can't be written or something.
Right, sure. I mean, there's problems. There will always be problems to solve, and most problems require some degree.
There's always going to be problems to solve for humans.
Yeah, I think so. Even
Why?
if, well, not everyone wants AI to solve all the problems. I think so. You have a certain degree of kind of purity where people are like, well, I want a human solution to this problem, right? And whether that be,
it's going to be artisan code.
yeah, I mean, bespoke or whatever the new term is. I think that I think coding is going to be one of the first professions really to change very rapidly and dynamically to something else that's more high level. I mean, I know a lot of programmers, and many of them are using AI tools, and many of them are saying like, I have so much more time available to improve product, to think creatively about how to implement a new feature, to put more time into building the Sistine Chapel, like to do not just have a box, but have a stained glass windows, have a lot more features and functionality into a thing, because they're doing more review, they're doing more, the AI is checking out a bit of code, evaluating a stack, looking at it, proposing a change, implementing the change, testing the change, and then then there's a human in the loop that says, "Yep, this all looks good. Okay, let's ship it," right? And so the humans are adding the more human centric value, and I think enjoying more of the coding. So,
I mean,
that's what I would say.
I agree with that. That's definitely been my experience when I used it to help my own programming. I'm just not 100% sure that that's the end state. I think that's maybe just the transition
It's a
state.
transition state. Sure.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to this other article I'd sent you from David Matten, global macro investor guy. He gets this question all the time. He's this consultant. He goes in, everybody always asks him, well, what am I supposed to tell my children? And
Well, I have three small kids, another on the way.
I've got two quotes from this article. I'd love to get your take on it. So he says, the world that's coming is one that prizes emotional intelligence, empathy, and embodied skills such as one-to-one conversation and public speaking. One thing I'm sure of, in an age of super intelligent machines, the ability to speak human, to be a compelling, persuasive, charismatic storyteller is gold dust.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're 100% agree on that?
I do. I think about, Anakin, right? Like he works for a droid guy. There's droids everywhere. He's building racers, like he's scrapping stuff, right? He's a kid. Is there a place for him, like surrounded by droids and everything? I think the answer is yes, but it looks very different. And for my own kids, I think we're rapidly closing. We do a combination of homeschooling. We're having our fourth pretty soon, and so we'll be going back to the full homeschool model, I think. Is what my wife wants to do, but we'll be using a hybrid AI tutoring, some products to get the children used to exploring ideas, because with AI tools you can explore literally any idea. Right? You don't even have to give the answer, but like help the child explore, kind of open the aperture of their mind on a particular topic. My son, for example, loves castles, right? So maybe, he has a writing assignment. Maybe he wants to write about castles, and the AI assistant can help him really dive into the story. Like, how do you write a compelling informational piece that has a story component that makes the presentation of the information a lot more compelling? And so I think that I 100% agree that the soft skills of talking to people, making eye contact, having character, having your speech be appropriate in any situation, having confidence, having charisma. I think all of these things are going to be really important for humans because that's how they'll differentiate themselves from their peers. It won't necessarily, sure, you'll be using AI tools, but then what's the meat bag presentation of that? Like, what's the storefront look like, right? So even just being physically strong and flexible and presenting yourself physically in a way that is strong and well put together, I think is all going to be really important. So we use a classical conversation model in our homeschool family, and a lot of that is presentation. A lot of that's memorization and recitation. And, we look at, great poets and formal documents like the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and, children have to memorize those things. And, being civic engaged in your communities, being able to see opportunity when it comes. One of the things in that article I thought that was really great analogy was a surfing analogy. Like in the water, I'm looking for opportunity, always looking for opportunity. I see some on the horizon. I see it developing. I insert myself into that opportunity. I'm flexible enough to learn some new things, use the tools that I have, take advantage of the opportunity. And that could look like a business, that could look like a service opportunity in your community, a leadership opportunity, for a failing company or whatever, right? Like, so, there's a huge number of companies right now in America run by boomers who literally complain that there are no young people to take them over. They don't have their own children, don't want them. Their grandchildren may or may not want them. And even if they did have a candidate, they don't have basic people skills and communication skills and the charisma and the sales experience to be able to like describe the product or service to a person and have that translate. Just and so I think the biggest superpower for my children and your children will be teach them to use the AI tools. And ideally, I mean, we're going to be seeing Optimus robots here in production very soon, 2026, from a private company perspective, but they're going to be coming in 2027 for public consumption in the $20K range, and they'll have full LLMs on the device. They'll be Starlink connected almost undoubtedly, and so you'll have these humanoid robots that know their users' preferences and can do most anything that a human can do. And so our children will be coming into their age as teenagers kind of right around this time where all these humanoid robots are going to start popping up. And there will be a lot of concerns about that, but there'll be a crap ton of opportunity. I mean, if my son say he wants to start a weeding business, and he goes to the bank, we get a little micro loan. He leases two of these Optimus robots, and he goes around and he shows up at a house and they start weeding the gardens. He makes $100 or whatever it is, and then he can walk away and have that customer experience. And so I think there's going to be a lot more focus on customer service, because good customer service, at least call center, that sort of thing, will be perfect with AI. I mean, there's no reason why you should have a bad experience calling Verizon or AT&T or Comcast or anyone. That should be nearly a perfect, pleasant experience, for everyone. And so the demand for increased quality human engagement from humans will be very strong. And I think if we can help our children to be able to compete at that level, from the empathy and the engagement and the soft skills, I think that's the best shot. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask you a different question, but since you brought up the robots, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole for just a second, and then we'll get back on to the using AI in the home and for your homeschooling. So if the humanoid robots do come about and the technology advances to the point that it's, I don't know if you watched Battlestar Galactica, but it's essentially skin jobs. And these things are passing the Turing test. Does there come a point where people aren't sure if it's a robot or a human? And then the question is like, if you're looking for that genuine empathy and it tricks you, what is genuine empathy?
Yeah, that's a really wonderful question. I think Elon Musk is experimenting with that right now with his XAI Grok companions. I read a story about a trucker. It was a long haul trucker, and you're on the road for all day, every day, weeks and weeks, months and months. He would pester his wife all the time, call her, and he's gone, right? She's kind of living her own life really for the most part. But he came to her and said, "Hey, like this new companion thing, like I can just talk to the companion all day. Like, do you have a problem with that?" And it's like, what are you doing to your marriage, right? And I think,
yes, is that like an emotional affair?
that's a really good question. And never mind, these companions can do like super R-rated stuff as well. I mean,
Oh,
that's
that will 100%
that will
happen. But
100% be a thing.
I'm
But
not talking
let's
about
just
the carnal stuff will
yeah,
happen.
let's just put the carnal stuff aside. But really, from the emotional intelligence perspective, there are models right now being trained on how to have an engaging, empathetic, conversation with humans, how to encourage, what is encouragement, right? And so I think you make a very good point in that, like, what is it, if these companions can do this, if they can already pass the intellectual Turing test, if they can have a conversation, um, and humans accept that their need for connection can be fulfilled by this, right? And I initially thought people would be like, "Oh, well, it's not a human, so I'm good." But I don't know. I see more and more folks just
What if you can't tell?
plugging in to the matrix in that regard. Like the uncanny valley is getting really tough. I mean, even in video, I mean, just from a software perspective, like video and audio is becoming very difficult to detect, um, whether or not it's a human or not. I mean, from a cybersecurity perspective, it's terrifying because with a few seconds of audio, you can simulate someone's voice. You can, with just a photo, you can simulate a video call with them, and you can slipstream that into a Zoom or a Teams call or whatever. And there's been all sorts of abuses of that already, but I think folks are going to be very skeptical of of a lot that like trust component's going to get eroded very quickly from a fraud perspective with these tools. And so um, I think it comes down to whether or not you trust the platform, the engagement, the custody of your data. It's I don't. So
Do you think people will care though? I mean, let's
most
go one
people
step further.
most people
Yeah,
won't.
let's go one step further
Most
down this
people won't.
rabbit holes. Which one do you think is going to happen first? Full immersion, virtual reality, like the Matrix, where you literally think you are there. It's like jacked into your brainstem, Neuralink, whatever.
And Neuralink,
Or
yeah.
humanoid robots, skin jobs that have crossed the uncanny valley and are indistinguishable from other humans in real life. Which one would you bet first?
I think Neuralink probably first.
I tend to agree with you. And at which point, if that happens, I feel like the skin job path just kind of dies because it's like, who even needs IRL experiences at that point? It's like everybody just goes meta.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Ready Player One. It's a great example of this. Here's your pod, strap in, plug in.
Well, especially if it's like universal basic income and
Yeah,
they'll pay for your pod. And, it's like real life experiences become the flex. It's like nobody can afford real life anymore because your UBI doesn't cover it.
yeah,
Do,
yeah.
do you
That,
really think that's where we're headed?
gosh, I hope not. But I mean, yeah, they're. I don't know, Jim. I can see a path, right?
Well,
I can see a path,
do you
right?
think it's technically possible?
Yeah, sure.
So if it's technically possible, then it's almost like inevitable. Like people are going to want this.
Um, Maybe. I mean, I think there's an incredible amount that we don't understand about the brain in terms of generative experiences directly into our neurons, right? Like, I mean, we're trying. I mean, Elon's trying. I mean, he's got Neuralink, right? He's able to essentially read and write to your brain already. He's delivering solutions for people who are paralyzed, who are able to regain certain functions, with, assistive technologies. I I think we're probably a fair distance off from either the Matrix or her, where you have like a humanoid robot, that's uncanny. right? Like that you can't really tell. But I don't
Okay,
think,
but is this problem, are either of these problems harder to solve than AGI?
well, um, AGI, general intelligence, I think is a matter of context, window size, and compute and energy. I mean, it's kind of all memory. Like our brains, for all intents and purposes, taking the spiritual component out of it, are decision trees. They're neural systems. We have memory. We have processing. We have observatory things, and all of that can kind of be
Can you take the spiritual component out of it though?
from the perspective of just saying, like, yes, I think it will be possible to read and write to one's mind. I think it's going to be possible to have that be preserved in a humanoid form, even to the extent of, like, I mean, Avatar, just came out, and you have the general there who kind of wrote himself to an avatar, right? And I think it's definitely being explored in the collective consciousness with movies, and has been for a while. I th- I think it's going to be,
I mean, this is the transhumanist dream, right?
so yeah,
And this is
it is, yeah.
this is where as Christians we start to
Yeah.
really kind of butt up against,
Yeah, it gets a rub. We get a rub.
yeah, we're embodied souls, and Jesus isn't, he's embodied, and there's something carnal and good about us having bodies, and we're not just going to be cherubs floating on clouds for forever. We're going to be humans in the new heaven and the new earth, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, for
this
sure.
idea of like downloading our brain into an android or uploading our brain into the matrix is not
It's not
compatible with
it's not a future
biblical.
state. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
future state phenomena, right? Like or an infinity state phenomena, right? Um, and our human bodies still are like the best. you know, they're far superior in every way, right? Just even from an energy consumption perspective, like it's the human body is just an incredibly beautifully engineered creation, and I think it's like you mentioned, it's transhumanist utopia to say, oh well, we can create that, and ultimately it's a Babel thing, right? Like it's like, oh well, we want to transcend God, right? And that's a very, Satan loves that. I mean, that's like his original his original vibe is like, how do I capture for myself worship? How do I capture for myself this creative thing? And it's it's one thing for us to create because God creates. It's another thing entirely to create a separate framework for reality, in our own likeness, essentially, um, that removes from God the glory, right? Uh, and places it squarely on a corporation or ourselves or our own ingenuity, right? That is one of the biggest problems I have with AI is just the theft of the dignity of work and what the scale of that might look like for humanity, and the resulting enslavement. Um, don't know how that's going to turn out, but there's a dignity in work, right? There's a dignity in learning a skill, in glorifying God, in excellence in your work. And if that's taken, if the opportunity is taken because AI and robots are just doing everything, what does that look like? How does that, and we're all in UBI and living in pods and plugging in, like the hope and just the human experience uh, will be very different. Um, I don't think we get there though fully.
It's not technically possible, or God intervenes.
I think God intervenes.
So in your mind, we are building Tower Babel 2.0 right now? So if this is Tower Babel 2.0,
Mm-hmm.
how do you feel about turning your kids loose on initial versions of it for their school and stuff like that?
Well, I wouldn't use the term turning them loose because I think it's very important to have rails, sandbox, an appropriate sandbox. So one of the tools that I've been using, and we were part of the beta, and my son uses, is Conmigo. This is part of Khan Academy, and it's a teaching assistant. It's a tutoring assistant, and it's primarily not designed to give your child the answers. It's designed to make them a better thinker, and to help them to the solution, right? I think it's a really well well designed product for kids. It also fully logs all the activity, right, and allows you as a parent to see it. They have products for schools that are in reading and math and sciences, and also writing coaching. And so I think that specific tool I think has been very excellent for us because it allows kind of an approved sandbox environment for a child to get in there and explore a topic in a way that is accountable and is safe.
Do you go back and like review the conversations or something, or?
Yeah, I do. But it's also
Like, do you feel safer about that than like just turning them loose on Google search?
yeah. Google search is literally designed to corrupt your kids very quickly. So, an image search or just anything, and children specifically want to, are very good. They're little velociraptors. They're very good at finding their ways around systems. And my children don't have access to Google search in the way that most kids might on a device, right? So we have very strict lockdowns on YouTube and Google, simply because these large corporations are trying to monetize your child's attention and figure out what their interests are and sell it as quickly as they can.
So
And
AI is kind of a game changer in the sense that now you can actually trust that it is sandboxable.
correct. Yeah.
I mean, you're verifying it, but you can trust it more than like safe search or whatever.
Sure. I mean, safe search is easily defeated with like a couple special characters and like words that don't mean what you think they mean as parents. Like kids are super good at figuring out ways to get access to content that's dangerous for them, simply because they're curious. And I think there will be some tutoring and teaching tools like Conmigo and other solutions like it that are really enabling positive educational outcomes for parents and for homeschoolers. One of the things that's really interesting about these tools is that one of the administrative things that homeschool parents loathe is just, okay, well, how are we evaluating? Like, how are you reporting back to the district that you've achieved a milestone, or how are you going back and kind of retesting things you maybe taught them last year, et cetera? How are you building upon the knowledge in a similar way? And, some homeschool families take a very very loose approach to that and just are looking at experiences and building skills. And then others have a more, like a classical conversation series model, which is very rigorous. Like you're learning multiple languages, like it's intense memorization. It's a lot of logic and reason. And I think in my opinion, that's probably the best tool to use to train children.
So your take is, yeah, we might be living in Babel 2.0, but we may as well take advantage of the intermediate benefits before ASI happens or before God stops it from happening, either to do our jobs or to be better educators. What about church-wise, like analyzing passages in the Bible or even coming up with ideas for sermons or things like that? How do you feel about that?
Well, at our church, we step, verse by verse through a book, right? And so we're teaching were teaching in that style. And so you can imagine it's very useful to say, hey, like what's some context in this particular verse? What was going on in Greece at the time, and or what was happening in the environment, or let's look at the geography of the land and talk to me about this, right? And it can really breathe life into portions of scripture. It, but you have to be very careful because it also has a left-leaning bias on a lot of eschatology as well, and bias on interpretation of particular sections of scripture, kind of depending on its sources. And so you have to be very careful if you have a church constitution or statement of belief or something like that, where you're part of a denomination that says, well, this is what we believe. Now you can load that into your AI session, and you can say, hey, this is my specific belief. I want us to be interpreting things from this worldview, and it will do a bit of a better job to kind of defending that in while it's producing arguments and things like that. But as a research tool, I think it's useful. I would be careful. I would be careful with having it produce scripture, because I've had experiences where I've asked it for citations and it's made subtle changes to the underlying text, right? To kind of serve its reasoning. And so one of the prompts that I always use is don't ever, if I provide a context, don't be editing or changing the original text. I think that's really important. I think it's dangerous to have it replace our ability to work through theologically and logically and contextually through a portion of scripture. There's a rigor in that is a partnership with Christ as the Word, right? And so, again, there's this opportunity to rob Christians from their fellowship time in the Word with God by just using AI instead, right? That is
ultimately you want the Holy Spirit to interpret the scripture to you, not AI.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Now
so
you can get there.
Eschatology.
Yeah, you can get there a little bit more efficiently, but ultimately we don't want to be replacing the Holy Spirit for AI. Now there's, Satan, I'm sure would love that. So
yeah. Do you think that it's possible that demons are manipulating AI systems and or partially responsible for some of the intelligence behind LLMs?
It's not, as far as I know, biblically, it wouldn't be possible for a demon to inhabit a computer system. But certainly it's possible for spiritual forces to influence and inhabit speech and people, right? So now, there's a dark side of generative AI that are used by the occult, and all of that goes into training models, right? And the language and so they can be corrupted, just like regular speech or regular information. And I think you have to have a sensitivity to that. I wouldn't say AI systems are inhabited by demons and that's where they get their intelligence. I think that's not fair at all. But what I would say is, if, and taking from a Screwtape Letters perspective, like if I was, Wormwood, right, and if I was a demon and my goal would be to enslave, distract, and ensnare as many humans as possible with AI companions and technology and all of this, like I would actively try to steer that meta. I would try to corrupt and pollute the models as much as I'm able to steal the worship, right? Like I think these models will be worshipped. I mean, there are already scenarios where there are generative actresses and actors who are not human at all and are signing licensing deals to be in commercials and things like that. I mean, there are organizations, corporations, and groups and entities using these tools for nefarious and evil purposes, right? And so I
Well,
think,
you said it before too. They're like left-leaning woke models. They're pushing
sure,
agendas.
sure, right? You have to be super mindful of the bias. Um, it Trust will
Like,
erode.
can a child? Does Conmigo somehow get around the bias, or can a child understand that?
No, children know for sure, right? They're a blank slate, right? And so in a way, you have to be very careful which models you allow a child to use because they're going to accept as truth whatever is shared with them. And so I think Conmigo is doing a really great job approaching that from an AI safety perspective and a bias perspective in a way that is admirable. I think it presents a problem for Christians because increasingly, I think there will be pressure to remove Christian world values and Western values out of these models in a way that is going to be a problem.
I mean,
So,
Elon claims he's trying to go maximum truth seeking with Grok. Do you trust that?
um, I mean, I think he's trying to shoot for a very centric view. But it's interesting to talk to these
He
AI.
does say truth seeking. He doesn't say left or right or centric. He says truth seeking.
Yeah, yeah, he's for sure. And it's interesting if you ask Grok who Jesus is, which is a fun exercise. All any of these models, they'll tell you, right? If you ask them to do comparative religion kind of studies and come to conclusions, or ask them an opinion, right? These are all kind of weighted outcomes, right, based on human content input, right? So they're not currently intelligent from the perspective that they're affirming a truth. The truth is whatever it is that the consensus says it is, and whatever the weights say it is, whatever the predictive tokens say it is. And so I think there's curation that's still required, human curation constantly to make sure that your AI model doesn't kind of go off the rails and start to hallucinate. We've seen lots and lots of examples of that. I think one of the reasons why he is doing XAI is because I think he has very legitimate concerns about AI safety and wants to lead by example rather than allow it to just kind of go off the rails with other companies. I mean, there was a whole bit of conflict between him and Sam Altman from OpenAI, right? Like that was one of the big complaints with him being removed from the board and everything. Is I think that conflict is still around, right? With these big models, what is truth? It's interesting. A lot of people will start to outsource their ability to evaluate what is true and just use AI, right? And then just say, well, my truth is whatever AI says it is. Right? That's super dangerous, right? One of the things we're admonished to do in the Bible is to like absolutely question things, even our own thoughts, right? Even our own intentions, the intentions of our own hearts, right? We're supposed to constantly be evaluating those things against the truth of the Word of God. And I think a lot of people will start to outsource that to these models in a way that's not going to be healthy for eschatology, for theology, for it's already a problem. I think in many churches that folks don't really know their Bible, they don't really understand for themselves the arguments, and they're happy with with a platitude. But yeah, I think that's going to increase. As Christians, I think we really have to be careful how we use the tools and what we outsource to them.
So Let's set Elon aside for just a second. Let's just talk about the Sam Altmans of the world and OpenAI and even military stuff, although I think Elon just did a deal with the military. So I don't know. It seems like most people involved really don't give a rip about safety. They're either sort of patriotic maxis and we need to do it before the Chinese, or they're transhumanists that just basically want to create God. And if that results in humanity being phased out, they're totally happy with that because I guess that's their legacy. Do you think that accurately characterizes most of the money behind AI right now, or is there like a kind of a third not like a third track that people actually care about safety, and is safety even a problem that can be solved outside of God just saving us?
Well, humans are great getting ourselves into problems that require a God solution, right? So um, let's talk about. I mean, there are 100% military applications to these, and the humanoid piece is not a great development from that perspective. Um, I would not be surprised if we don't have orbital shock troops, at some point, right? So we're just playing right into the Halo universe here. But I think that we've seen in the conflict in Ukraine, and of course China does these massive drone shows, right? Where drones and autonomous weapon systems and detection systems and AI systems are becoming, the weapons of choice in conflict, and in some ways to minimize human casualties, civilian casualties, in some ways to maximize them. Um, one of the reasons why China just has these amazing drone displays is to let their people know the consequences of any kind of uprising, right? And uprising will be a problem with UBI. I mean, people don't want to live in a pod. I mean, there's like a
Do they not though? Oh man, I mean, we're biased because we grew up in the real world, but I mean, I think a lot of people would be like Cypher in the Matrix, like give me the pill.
yeah, give me the steak. It's too good. Um, I I don't know. I think drones and humanoid robots will be a part of future conflict, pretty much all future conflict. There's an asymmetric advantage to using a drone or a humanoid, uh, you know, container delivery mechanism or whatever. That's $20,000. I mean, you know,
I'm less interested on the hardware side. I'm more interested on the software side, like just the hubris that we need to develop before China, because then we'll be able to control it. I mean, has anybody seen Terminator? I mean, this it
yeah, the
doesn't end
term,
well for anybody.
yeah, the Terminator vibes. I mean, we essentially have Skynet with Starlink already, so we already have a. And then I just saw last week that the energy problem with existing AI systems are a huge problem, but it's not a problem in outer space. And right, so Elon Musk says, well, I guess I'll design pods of containerized AI compute and put it in orbit, and of course you can. You got rockets all over the place, and ideally you'd put it on the moon, and you got unlimited solar energy up there too. And so it's like,
Right. So even with Elon, it's basically we've got two groups. One's developing Skynet, and the other one's developing, the replacement God. It just, I mean, as a Christian, you have to like just
you got to wrestle with it.
viscerally
Hey,
cringe
you
at
got to
this
sit
stuff,
with
right?
it. You got to sit with it. And it's interesting. One of the, obviously on the What Bitcoin Did podcast, we didn't really get into the spiritual aspects of it, but I feel conflicted, right? Like I feel that these technologies will be here for a time. Obviously, we know biblically, we know that the future state of heaven is renewed bodies and no sin, right? And so there won't be a need for currency. There won't be a need for technology in the forever state. And so there's some degree of debate we can have about, okay, well, between now and then, what does that look like?
Yeah,
And
let's talk about
yeah,
how we get there.
let's talk about how
So
we get there.
Is AI the beast? Is it part of the tribulation? I know you're a pre-mill guy, so here's your
Yeah.
chance.
Well, I mean, so we have a couple worldviews, right? You know, the world's either getting continually better, and then it's just gonna, we'll have this physical reign of Christ on earth, and this millennial kingdom in which he will mediate all the governments and all of that, right? So like that's the amiel view, right? But I don't think it continues to get better. It doesn't feel to me like it's getting better, right? Now
It doesn't?
there's certain aspects of humanity that are getting better, right? Maybe food security or the reduction in cost, improvement of quality of life. You know, ideally here pretty soon, energy technologies where energy is nearly free. The manufacturing cost of renewables and things like that. Things are getting better. Refrigeration, the whole that's getting
I
better.
mean, there's never been more humans alive than right now, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We have a pretty interesting international dynamic happening with demographics, with birth rates, um, with the cost of living, with debt enslavement in every level, right? At local levels and personal finances and governments and corporations. And so you have a trending, you have this fiat disease, the inflation fiat disease that's basically eroding all things, reducing the quality of things. And even though we have all this deflationary improvement in technology, we're not seeing it in the reduction of prices and in things getting easier from a cost perspective. You're
But
seeing
we have the antidote to that, Bitcoin, right?
maybe Bitcoin as a technology, I think, is amazing. It, is a deflationary currency. It's, I would say, way more truthful than anything else we've got to date, and allows for, at least in this time, the ability to freely transact, apart from coercion. But
Things could get better with Bitcoin.
they could, they also could get worse, right? Um, in that, it's. I
How
mean,
could it get worse?
well, kind of depends on your eschatology, right? So if you're a pre-tribulation rapture guy like myself, you have an event at some point in the future. We don't know when. Um, Christ himself doesn't even know when, right? Like a thief in the night, right? Uh, and you have an event where a bunch of people disappear. Um,
But you can't blame Bitcoin for that, right?
no, Bitcoin, but you got a lot of Christians who own Bitcoin, right? You have a lot of you're gonna have disruption, right? Like, well, what do you do with the people who vanished? Do you burn their coins? I mean, it's almost the quantum problem. Like, what do you do with Satoshi's coins, right? Like,
I mean,
you
if their
have
keys are lost at that point, it's like a
they're
pro
lost,
rata
right?
distribution.
Sure, makes sense, right? But immediately, after the tribulation or after the rapture would be the tribulation, and you have a 3.5 year peace agreement with the Antichrist. He comes to power. Probably, hey, what do we do about all these people who disappeared? Let's kind of join together. Maybe it's aliens. Who knows, right? But
Do you think there are aliens?
I think that the Antichrist will use that narrative for sure, right? I mean, it's a
Probably
good.
just demons.
Um, well, he will say, okay, well, what's the best explanation for a bunch of people who disappeared, right?
The
Well,
aliens beam them up.
yeah, we have an intergalactic enemy that came and took a bunch of people, which is not even a lie. Like Jesus is a
Do you think the
intergalactic
Antichrist
person.
is an AI?
I think he'll use AI heavily, right? Like that's where the image of the beast, I think, comes in for me. Is that the Antichrist will be able to unify uh, everyone with the mark of the beast, right? And you won't be able to buy and sell, right? Even, including Bitcoin, right? Like you won't be able to buy or sell without the mark, right? So there's an authentication mechanism here with the mark. And
This kind of flies in the face of the sovereign individual thesis, right?
yeah, it
It's
does.
like it's my keys. I have my keys. They're my coins. Like nobody can tell me what I can or can't do with them, right?
Well, that all makes sense. And maybe there will be small pockets of that. But like, I mean, if if you're a pre-tribute, like the tribulation is terrible. Right? So like I think people's accessibility to think about sovereign stores of value when they're literally being hunted and killed, and there's all sorts of terrible tribulations that are being poured upon them. I think I'm not sure that people will have the capacity to do Bitcoin during the tribulation.
Well, I mean, even right now, it's like we have KYC, right? So
Yeah,
even if
that's
we,
very easily co-opted with digital IDs and on ramps and off ramps, right? Great, you can trade your Bitcoin, but if the person receiving the Bitcoin now has custody of it, but what are they going to do with it, right? It's like you need to eat, and the systems of production will be controlled, right? And so there won't be a way to trade. Um, the, and if you could imagine the image of the beast being a global AI system with drones and humanoid robots and people who are incentivized to reveal your location or your identity in exchange for credits or whatever that system is. Um, it'll be very difficult to exist as a person who does not receive the mark, right? And we know that
so
yeah, go ahead.
in your mind, you're saying I'm okay to use AI as a Christian because I'll just get raptured before it gets bad.
No, I think that's maybe a bit crass. I would say AI is a tool, just like Bitcoin is a tool. Money itself is not evil, right? Um, Seashells aren't evil, gold's not evil, diamonds aren't evil, right? These are
Do you think
just
some tools push people more towards evil than good, though?
sure they can, if used inappropriately, and it depends on the season of all of this and the nuance. Like it's incredibly nuanced conversation to have. I don't think you know the rapture can happen at any time for me as Christian. I think one of the things I've been reflecting on recently on this is the parable about um, the women who were prepared with oil for the return of the master and the ones who weren't. And right before that, is another parable talking about people who are pharisaical, right, with their relationship with Christ. And when people, I think it's really important to not damage your witness through the use of a tool that could be morally questionable, right? And the current tools, I don't think are that yet. I mean, certainly some of the companions, and some of these, generative AI pornography platforms and things like that. I mean, some of the stuff out there is terribly toxic for Christians to use or even think about or view or any of that, right? It's like, and I think we have to be very careful to guard our children against getting access to those platforms. But I think there's probably a Goldilocks window here where we get AI systems that are very helpful and very centrist, or at least can be guided to present truth in a way that's compatible with our worldview, um, and that can enable productivity in ways that are very helpful. So maybe managing a home garden, maybe managing some animals on a property, maybe helping give you some of your time back with your children because it's folding laundry or it's doing dishes or sweeping your house or walking around your property picking up sticks or whatever it is, right? There'll be, I think, a Goldilocks window for some of these technologies where it is still appropriate to use. At some point, though, um, I think it will be co-opted, and then you won't be able to use it without having some kind of moral compromise.
Do you feel like that could happen before the rapture?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you feel like we're close at all to that?
I feel that we're closer now with some of these AI technologies than we were 5 years ago.
Would like full immersion virtual reality cross the line for you? Like you would never jack into that?
Yeah, I don't think that would be appropriate for a Christian, if I'm being honest. If you're giving over,
Even if it's just like totally, you're just walking through a field of grass or something and petting a cow. Like it's not pornographic or anything.
yeah. I mean, I think it would be, there's something divine about our mind, and in ways we don't even understand neurologically. I think what Neuralink is doing is interesting, but I will not personally be signing up for a Neuralink that's connected to an AI agent. Like, I think that's probably where I would draw the line as an individual, with something apart from myself being able to read and write directly to my mind.
What about other augmentation?
Yeah, I think it would the AI safety and how closed of a loop it is. I think it would be really important, right? So if you had, for example, an AI chip that was completely gated and was watching a series of neurons to fire, and all its capabilities were to map the firing of those neurons to a prosthesis or something like that, right? Like it's not interacting with your higher functioning. It's not, say you needed a lung implant or something like that, and it's like very narrowly focused on the area of the brain that's controlling your breathing, and then you could train it to kind of breathe. Like I might be okay with something like that as a medical device, but like a full scale matrix style plug into my brain and read and write, I would be very skeptical.
What if it's not touching your brain? What if we get ASI and it's this sort of benevolent God and it cures aging? Do you take the cure aging nanobots?
Cure aging nanobots. Oh man, you're hitting me up here. I believe
maybe
that,
they're not nanobots. Maybe it's
yeah,
just a pill that
sure,
makes so you don't get cancer, you don't get
some
Parkinson's.
CRISPR gene edited, protein something, right? I mean, I'm very skeptical, having come out through our last round of CRISPR gene edited spike proteins, that that there aren't incredibly problematic second and third order consequences from some of these technologies that we have. The hubris that we know what we're putting into our bodies, I think, is staggering. God,
even if you knew with 100% certainty that it was like not going to cause some downstream effect other than just you're not going to die.
Well, I mean, death is something that we're currently promised as Christians, right? God specifically limited the age of man, right? And so I would say accepting something to remove that restriction would be problematic, I think, for me personally. The age extension transhumanist movement feels very much like an idol in and of itself to me, and I'm very careful as to how I set boundaries on thinking about that, because I think there's a blessing in the frailty of life, in that it matters, and you really have to count how you spend your time thinking and interacting. And if you remove that into, and then, well, now time isn't even, you're not even bound by time. That doesn't feel like it's something that would be a good idea. So
I think it's tricky. I mean, there's obvious lines that get crossed at some point, right? If the AGI or ASI or whatever you want to call it figures out how to cure cancer, it's like, do you take the cancer vaccine?
I mean, cancer is maybe a different thing, right? So certain cancer, right? Like we already do this, and they're Christian sects that, like, we don't go to doctors, we don't take Tylenol, like we don't,
No vaccines.
no vaccines, we don't, if we break our leg, like, we'll set it ourselves, and if you die, well, that's what God wanted for your life, right? There are groups of people who think like that. I think that is. I think God enables people to be doctors. I think enables people to be surgeons. They're functioning in their gift. They're glorifying God in the skillful use of their gift. It feels okay for that. And Jesus himself was a healer, right? So he corrected all sorts of things, right? And as people who are to imitate Christ, right, we are to heal. We are to bring his presence and his healing to others through prayer, through laying of hands, and all sorts of things. And so I don't necessarily have a problem with the curing of disease, but there are all sorts of ethical things that go into that, like how those proteins were developed, and gene editing in general relies on a lot of technologies that are extractive and exploitative to human life, and so it would really depend on.
I was saying more in the context of like the ASI solving it in some sort of simulated version, so like no humans are harmed during the making of this cure, all that kind of stuff.
Well, you have an incredible amount of, even just in protein folding, which is something I was looking into the other day. They're using AI to simulate protein folding and to come up with novel solutions for this, and for all sorts of medical implications and all sorts of other creative implications. And that's accelerated protein. Like, they've pretty much, solved all protein, like known proteins, and been able to model them, opening huge, opportunities in medical sciences and material sciences and all sorts of things, right? All this stuff is here for us to discover as humans. I feel like, God created these systems, these building blocks, these mechanisms. I think it's just you have to be very careful on the hubris, and worshiping the thing rather than the creator. But yeah, time will tell, like how far we get down this rabbit hole before it goes sideways on us. I mean, I'm a bit nervous about adversaries creating pathogens that could do a lot of harm. That seems to be something that's still heading, full scale ahead. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm trying to take it one day at a time with these technologies and how I think about them and what I permit for myself and my family.
I think that's the overall takeaways. It's not all just, we can't just turn it all off. God put us here in this world.
Yeah,
right
can't
now,
throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We're here.
But also, it's like you can't just be like, oh yeah, just unrestricted access, just go for it. God will sort it all out, and hopefully he'll put the guardrails on when it needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, a man's original sin is his his stepping aside, his abdication of his leadership, right? And I think we have to continually deploy wisdom and nuanced understanding and interpretation as to what is good and what is right uh, for us to do. You know, there's been lots of different technologies that have come along where the church was opposed to them, and I think, you know, here we are facing a similar situation with AGI and ASI, and um, it feels a bit more existential, though. If I'm being honest, feels it feels like an assault on the dignity of work, and it could go south pretty quick. I'm keeping my I'm girding my loins on this one, to just continually be up to speed. You know, I think there will be great opportunities too. We're looking at using agentic employees to improve service delivery, and I think that's going to be something that people have to wrestle with. As we talked about, humanoid robots in your home, are they allowed in your garage? How about your kitchen? How about, bedroom, right? You know, Christians will have to
Has
decide where to draw the line on these things.
has your company laid anybody off, or does it employ more or less humans than 2 years ago?
Well, we're a constant growth company, so we grow typically 20 to 30% a year, in both humans and revenue. And so we've been taking a very nuanced approach to the implementation of AI. With environmental regulation, it's so incredibly nuanced to begin with. Every state has different standards, and depending on precisely your industry and your application and what you're trying to do, and what the case law is in a particular jurisdiction and how it's been interpreted and what are the comments, like it's just so incredibly nuanced. We haven't seen a lot of really great AI output that we're ready to, like, this is good to go. It almost always has logic fallacies and assumptions, and we still see opportunities for staff to use these tools to become better. Certainly for meetings and just like administrative, silliness in your emails and schedules, and helping you to write and do things like that. It's all been very useful in that regard. But we don't intend to say, "Hey, employee, we're going to replace you with this AI thing." If anything, we would accelerate our growth with more humans using the tools, right? It would allow us to achieve a greater scaling goal than otherwise would have been possible. But we're a very human, our culture is very important to us, and we're a very human-centric organization. And so not all companies work like that. I mean, if you run a Comcast call center and you can deliver a better outcome and lay off 20,000 people, that's a different business, right? Like our job is literal expert level human consulting, right? And so we're probably in a different industry and a niche that allows us to have that position. But I certainly wouldn't be getting a job as a call center operator. That's not going to be around much longer.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, let's finish this off with some conversation around AI, Bitcoin, and quantum. Do you think that AI is going to crack quantum? And then is that going to pose a problem for Satoshi's coins or anybody that has coins on old address formats?
well, I don't know that AI will do the cracking. I will say that AI is getting much better at mathematics, and it's very interesting to see some of the frontier math that's happening with some of these AI models. Um, I would not be surprised if any sufficiently complicated cryptographic system or infrastructure system becomes vulnerable to these frontier AI models. Um, One of the if you want to choose a profession, you know, AI and cybersecurity are about as high paying and highest opportunity right now, both on the adversarial defense side and on just like the building a system side. Um, I do think the quantum computing problem is going to be a problem with Bitcoin. I'm encouraged by the team that's working on it. Hunter Beast has done a fantastic job with his co-authors with Bit360. There are a number of people who care about Bitcoin very deeply, who aren't dismissing the threat with quantum computers. But man, there's quite a bit of nuance, right? These
It still
systems,
requires you to move your coins to make them safe, though, right?
but there seems to be this poison pill built into the design of Bitcoin with quantum, which is kind of like at some point in the future we'll face this adversary. And there's all sorts of FUD out there. The current computational models can't decrypt these keys yet or anything. The rough
I'm
consensus.
honestly kind of fine with Satoshi's coins if he chooses not to move them after the BIP gets implemented. Like, I'm fine with them being like an X prize for whoever develops quantum. Like, why not?
Well, it seems like a great idea. It seems like a great idea, but let's say that adversary is a government, right? And they say, okay, well, we're going to just sweep all coins into our possession and then use our treasury to speculatively attack Bitcoin, right? Either through selling or market manipulation, tanking the trust in the protocol itself by using the funds adversarially. That's a problem, right? Because you're not defending essentially the property rights of the existing holders, right? By not making those protocol changes. And the whole thing can collapse because people don't trust it, right? Now, eventually that'll wash out, like eventually, but like, how would you feel if,
I mean, it's only 5% of the supply, right?
no, it's like 6 million coins.
Satoshi's stack?
No, just his, yeah. But like there's about 6 million that are vulnerable.
Presumably, most people are going to move.
Let's just assume that half of them are not movable, right? 3 million coins, right?
It's like 15%.
Yeah, 15%, right? But like that's more than MicroStrategy and BlackRock have at this point, right?
At the rate things are going, I mean, Saylor might get to 10%.
Yeah, I mean he's certainly trying, right?
Yeah,
and
I don't like that either, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
he's kind of already speculatively attacking Bitcoin.
Sure. I think what's interesting on this quantum problem is that at some point the cryptography will be vulnerable. Our government's basically saying we have till 2035, and they won't be buying systems that aren't quantum resistant after 2030. And so we have probably 10 years, right, before this is really a problem. There's a group of us that are working on this, that are meeting, that are talking, and you know, I think great work is being done. There is a plan, right, and I think the cryptography that's currently being published by NIST, and you have to take some of their stuff with a grain of salt because of the government, but what's being proposed, I think we have a couple good options. There will need to be a bunch of BIPs for various improvements and changes, and there are a lot of people who are at least taking it a bit more seriously. But I think we will hit a threshold at some point where it becomes a forcing function, and BlackRock is already prepared. I mean, their ETF does give them the ability to choose a fork. So if you have a fork that burns the coins and a fork that allows them to be taken, I suspect that the Saylor BlackRock fork will choose to burn them. that incentive, and that's the incentive structure there. And maybe that's the fork that becomes the thing that is a problem with the mark of the beast. I don't know. You could have a force function at some point with this technology, though, where you burn some fork burns them and some fork does not. The fork that does not is maybe the free edition that gets speculatively attacked and ground down into nothing, but people can still tend to use it like a Bitcoin Cash or something like that. But then the economic model that's maintained by these large holders and economic actors and governments, you could see a scenario very easily where that system becomes co-opted and becomes a thing that enslaves and where people can't buy or sell because they've implemented digital IDs or something onto the on-ramps and off-ramps or something. Right. So there is a future battle, I feel like, on this technology that quantum's going to be the forcing function on. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out.
All right, let's talk about one other threat. Let's talk about AI's insatiable lust for energy and Bitcoin mining's insatiable lust for energy and competing with each other. Is it possible for Bitcoin's to secure its network in the face of competing against AI for energy?
Yeah, for sure. Now, there's a carrot in front of any Bitcoin miner at scale right now to just give over their compute energy capacity to an AI data center. And we've seen some that have made that pivot already, who are like, you know what, Bitcoin has been great, but we're going to do AI, right? And it's the same power profile essentially. And so it's a very easy pivot, or it's a very easy thing to offer in a hybrid capacity. And I think the hybrid capacity is good. But after the next halving, it's going to be really hard to mine Bitcoin on anything but stranded energy, in my opinion. And so I think we're going to see a return. Either we're going to see it being mined in space, or we're going to see advances in fusion or nuclear where the cost of energy, we're somehow able to maintain this trajectory that we're on, or things get some breakthrough in optical computing or where the cost of compute comes way down, or humanity kind of always finds a way, right? The Jurassic Park meme, right? I mean,
do you think it's gonna be mined in like low Earth orbit, or are you talking about outside the orbit of the moon?
I think low Earth orbit makes the most sense. I mean,
it can't get too far away, right? Did you read the Law of Hash Horizons article?
Yeah. Well, just because, but you know, like you wouldn't be able to put it. I think even mining it on like another planet would be problematic. But I think you can
mine on the moon.
You can mine on the moon. There's a crap ton of space on the moon. Like you could put all of our computational stuff on the moon, right? Like, and there's a huge amount of helium-3 up there, and there's all sorts of fuel sources, and obviously solar, right? And you could have a bunch of Optimus robots walking around and maintaining things and bases and construction. Like, I don't see why they can't just put it on the moon, right? Like his low Earth orbital capacity is pretty massive right now, more than the rest of the world. And I don't see any reason why he doesn't start doing low Earth orbit computational stuff. I mean, cooling's not a problem in space, right? Like you got some condensation problems, but
I mean, it is somewhat of a problem, right? Like you're absorbing all the radiation from the sun. You have to get rid of it, right?
Well, you'd have shielding, obviously, and if you're running like a solar sail or something like that, there's plenty of ways
you still have to have a way to radiate the heat, right? And it's a problem when you're in a vacuum because molecules aren't touching each other. So like radiating heat is actually a problem in space, even though space is really cold.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the moon makes the most sense because you can radiate it to the ground.
Exactly. Yeah.
In orbit, when you're not touching anything, though, that's you have to find some creative way to exchange the heat.
Well, that was quite a rabbit hole. I think we can wrap it up there. We've probably lost everybody at that one.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
talking about using the moon for doing all sorts of Bitcoin mining and AI compute. Do you want people to find Blocktron? Do you even have units to sell right now? How can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's blocktron.io. I'm on Twitter. It's Ginger Sherpa, and I put my quantum musings up there. I'm mostly a reply guy, but I do jump into the weeds on some spiritual things from time to time, and certainly on the AI conversation with kids and on Bitcoin topics. But as especially as they relate to the environmental industry, because I do think there's going to be some really great things coming in the heat pump, home mining, appliance utility scale stuff. Certainly, a solution for stranded methane and vented methane is huge, and so I do talk about some of those things on Twitter. But yeah, that's the best way to reach me is Ginger Sherper over on X, and then yeah, if you really want a Blocktron, they're not currently available. I'm working on my next batch. My next batch will be 210 units, and we'll have those available on Blocktron.io in the new year.
You need a optimist to help you make them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm currently working on getting some kids involved in the manufacturing process.
Yeah, you're making your own optimists.
Yeah, we're making my own humanoid optimists who want to earn Bitcoin by constructing these things. Yeah, Jim, thanks for your time. We're all over the place. Like you said, we probably lost quite a bit. A minute 45 at this point. Thanks for having me
No, it was
on
great.
and jumping into the weeds on these things.
It was great to have you.
All
Thanks.
right. God bless. Take care, Jim.